So, how are you doing, Nathan? How was your meeting?
It was productive. What did you find out from James?
From James, he wants to be flexible with the kids every other weekend, and alternate weekends. He's willing to give 5,200 a month. He wants to showing activities too
Five thousand two hundred a month for what?
for the kids.
Okay, for child support.
For
Okay.
child support. The spousal support, he's willing to do 2,000. Sorry, that's a different sheet of paper, but give me a second. $2,000, and if she has a job, he'd like to revisit that too. As far as summer camps, he does not like summer camps because he thinks that that's a place where you just drop off your kids and that's it. So he was hoping to have summer time with the kids, not summer camp. He definitely loves the kids. I mean, his whole thing is definitely the kids, and concern is the kids. He is wanting that house to be sold so that they can move to a more economical home. That's doable. He will carry the kids in his insurance. They have 3 cars total. One of them will go to John. Let's see. They do have a timeshare, and he's open for options on that one. He's looking at buying her out at some point.
Of the timeshare.
Mm-hmm. He does have stocks, and he wants to Microsoft, Google, and Apple. Microsoft at 150,000, and he's saying it's under him. Google stock is 250, Apple stock is 200, and he wants to do a 60-40 split. And those occurred when they got married or after they got married.
Let's do a 60-40 split on which ones?
On all of them.
On all of them? All 4?
All 3.
All 3?
The fourth one he has is from his father, so that's a gift. So
Which one is that?
The Starbucks, $100,000 in Starbucks. He's not willing to give that up because that's a gift. That is not community property. And that's what I have.
He wants to do a 60-40 split?
60-40 split. Mm-hmm. And then I was able to talk to, that's what I have for James. Gabriella is pretty easy if you want me to go over that one first until.
Did you talk to James about his 401k?
That's 500. That yes, he's willing to split that one. But that's 500,000.
Do they want to? Okay, so
It all depends on the
Did you
house.
talk to him? I mean, the Quadro come up, or did he just talk about actually selling out and taking a penalty on the 401k?
I think he's willing to. That one looks like a negotiation depending on the house.
Okay.
So he's not. I don't think he wants to split that until he knows what's going on with the house too. And
Because I would think that Jennifer's attorney is probably going to want to do a Quadro on the company,
Okay.
set up with a company that would just go on and automatically disperse at retirement, would disperse the retirement between the two of them. It would be set up as a legal instrument and be filed with the court. So,
Okay.
I mean, probably us versus having to sell it or something like that, take a penalty, because I think it's like it can be as high as 40%
okay.
capital gains hit on that, which they'd have to, that would be a whole other issue, is who's going to take the penalty if they want to split the penalty. But then they've lost a big share of their money. I mean, that would be kind of
Yeah.
silly.
Okay.
So he was kind of wanting to not discuss the 401k until.
And the house is very important because they're living in a big home right now with the 2 kids. So.
Do you think he would be willing to, if it came down to it and Jennifer thought that she could afford the house, do you think he'd be willing to have some situation where she took over payments and maybe bought out his equity in the house?
I think so. It's negotiable.
Okay.
The house is definitely negotiable.
Okay. Anything else that you can that really caught your attention?
On his side, no.
Okay.
His mom, I did sit with her for a few minutes, and the main concern she has is that she would like the children on Saturdays, Sundays. It's a tradition that they go to church and lunch with her. It's also a tradition that they do Thanksgiving and Christmas, and she wants a set schedule, a stable agreement for the kids. Again, it's just out there. I mean,
So she wants Saturdays and she wants weekends?
she wants some Saturdays and Saturdays and Sundays. But Sundays they do have a tradition to go to church and lunch. So if that's gonna, you know,
How will that impact James's
yeah, that's-
visitation? I
That
mean,
is, yeah. I think she understands that the parents and their decisions will come first. And they have a role, as in the parents have more of a role in say on anything. So I don't think Jennifer will have a problem with doing the weekends with grandmother.
Did you ask James? I mean, does he plan on staying in town, or does he plan on moving? I mean, because I had an indication at some point in time. I got the impression that he was thinking about moving to somewhere else. I mean,
I'll need to clarify that. So
and how that will impact the custody, because
So,
it's either going to be
I'll clarify that with him.
because
so.
there's either managing or possessory conservatorship, and they could be set up as joint managing, where they're both pretty much have full control, or they could be set up with one sole managing and one possessory. And it'll make a big difference if
He
James
wants
ends
her to
up-
have. He wants to work, so
he wants to
work more. Yeah.
So he's
So
wanting
I
her to
think-
have sole probably.
I think that's what's going
Or
to
he
happen.
may not
yeah.
argue with that.
I don't think he'll argue with that.
And that would make more, that would give him more flexibility if he did want to move.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought he had said something about New York City or something, you know, I mean, just wanted to live. He wanted his freedom, he wanted to live it up or
Yeah,
something.
he
I
does
don't
want to
know.
live it up. So that's what we
That's-
know
that was-
about him.
Okay.
But he does care about the kids, so he does want some kind of relationship.
Now, Jennifer, I asked her on both of those. I asked her if she had a problem with either one. She would prefer to be the sole managing
Yeah.
conservator and have him as possessory,
Okay.
but she was not opposed if he really was adamant about, you know, doing a joint managing conservatorship. So we got some flexibility there. Summer camp is going to be an issue. She really wants the kids to go to summer camp. And she was saying that it wouldn't interfere with James's visitation because he has them on the weekends. But that they really enjoyed summer camp. It was important to the kids, and that she really wanted to, you know, that was absolutely critical. They continue with summer camp.
Okay.
So we may have an issue there that we're gonna have to work
Okay.
through. She wanted to do alternating holidays. She insisted upon Christmas this year.
Okay.
Then Christmas will be with James the following year. Now,
Okay.
obviously, this runs in contrast to Gabriella, and we'll also want Christmas. But she wanted Christmas this year, and she said that James could have Thanksgiving this year.
Okay.
And then split the other ones too. I mean, they've just kind of split them out. I guess there's Easter, and then they got like Labor Day and Memorial Day, stuff like that. The kids are out of school.
Okay.
But anyway, they would split it, and then they would just rotate that
Okay.
each year, though. So whoever was with, you know, one particular parent on this year for a particular holiday, then the next year would be with the other parent.
Okay.
She did want the insurance for the children to remain with James, continue to carry that.
Yes, and he's fine with that too. Yes.
And she gave a percentage on child support at 25%, which would match the $5,200 figure that you had said that he was willing to do.
Mhm.
she's very supportive of Gabriella remaining very active with the children, and
Mhm.
thinks that since she's planning on trying to return to work, that it would even be more helpful because Gabriella would actually maybe even be able to help like after, after school, and watch them after school until she gets off work. Um,
Okay.
uh, we'll have to see with the Saturdays and Sundays. Really, that would conflict. That Gabriella wanting the Saturdays and Sundays is really going to conflict more with James's schedule than
Mhm.
with anything with Jennifer. So I don't.
I think Jennifer will be fine with Gabriella if the kids were with Jennifer. So I think that will work.
Right.
That could be negotiable to where it would be.
It's just the times that
Okay.
the Christmas and the Thanksgiving. That would be something that I will need to address with Jennifer and express Gabriella's wishes. The Saturday Sunday that Gabriella wants
Mhm.
really needs to be discussed with James in particular because that would interfere with his visitation.
Okay.
On the spousal support, um, she had said a percentage. She was more interested in a percentage, not a dollar figure. I mean, obviously, it could break either way. I think. What did you come up with?
James.
He said he
wanted.
wanted to do 2,000.
Which one are we talking about now? The
Spousal
alimony?
support.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's willing to do 20% or of a max of 5K. So he was willing to do 2,000.
Let's hold on. Let's take a quick break. I need to take this phone call real quick.
Okay, so under the law, it says that he should give 20% of his income, a max 5,000. But he did offer 2,000.
Okay, so he offered it 2,000, but
Yeah.
it could be 20% of his, and he's making about 21,000 a month, so it could be up to possibly. I mean, if this thing went to litigation, of course, it could be up to 20% of that 21K, which would be about 4,200, I guess, or 5,000, whichever's less, would be the 4,200, and he's at 2,000, so that's going to be an issue we're going to probably have to deal with too. Let's see. As far as the house, I mean, Jennifer wants to keep the house. She's not sure she can afford it.
Yeah.
I brought up
He doesn't want to keep the house.
Yeah, and I brought up the fact that if was she willing to buy out the equity, and she was like, well, I don't have any money. I said, well, I mean, you have to go get a loan. I mean, obviously, to be able to do that. So I asked her if she was willing to try to do that, if she's willing to, and she said she'd be willing to look into that. But, and then I asked her, I said, well, I mean, if that becomes an issue, I mean, are you absolutely opposed to selling the house? And she said, well, if it became necessary, then
Okay.
have to do that. So
Okay.
I think we have some wiggle room on that.
Okay.
And it said she wanted to keep a timeshare for at least 1 year, and she said if money's an issue, that she wouldn't be opposed to selling it.
Okay.
It sounds like James may want to buy that out
Yeah.
from her anyway.
Yeah.
But she did want to use one of the weeks his first year.
Mm-hmm.
And she was hoping that he would use 1 week with the children. So she would use 1 week, he would use 1 week this year, but both with the children, that would be used. Let me see, cars. So yeah, she said one's in her name. He's not on the title, and the two were titled to James, and that one of those was James. That both of them kind of were in the same position that one of those would go to John. So there was no need to mess with any of the titles with that. They would just split those as is. She was a little concerned about like furniture and stuff, furnishings and stuff like that are in the house. She didn't want to lose like half the furniture.
Okay.
So we'll have to see where they're at, where really James is at with that.
Okay.
The grandfather clock, there's a grandfather clock in the living room that was a gift from her parents, so that is separate property, and thus is hers, will not be part of the joint,
Okay.
as far as the community property. And also her jewelry was a gift, and that's separate property. She had said the investment, she was talking about splitting the investments, like instead of having to sell them out and split them, which means selling out the stuff or changing trying to change the name that the stocks are in and all that. She had suggested that he take two and she take two, but it sounds like one of those is actually a gift to James from
Yeah.
his family,
Yeah.
which is a Starbucks. So the only way, I mean, it would. It's community property. I mean, I don't think she's going to agree to a 60-40 split on the other three. It's a shame because if all four of those were together, they could be arranged equally in 350 by doing a 2-2 split. But since one of them is his, we can't do that. What we may want to see is if she's willing to take the Google stock and then see if James would be willing to keep the Apple and the Microsoft. That would give him, that would kind of lean towards that 60-40 split he's talking about without them having to actually sell the stock. So if she's not absolutely opposed to that, I mean, it'll really boil down to whether, they're just willing to just sell the stuff to cash out on it and do a split. I did mention to her that her attorney had brought up something about the 401k, James's 401k, and that he had mentioned doing something with Quadro, so they wouldn't have to actually sell off assets to take the penalty, and that would be set up with the employer. I said she needed to talk to her attorney about that. So you're saying James really was kind of on hold with what he wanted to do with the retirement until we figure out the house?
Yeah, it's. I mean, he doesn't mind us talking about it, but that is something that he's willing to negotiate.
That's really community property, so that's going to be typically if it goes to litigation. She would get 50% of that.
Yeah.
And it would probably be set up, her attorney would probably set up through a Quadro, which would be filed with the employer, James's employer, and they would actually distribute the retirement funds. Upon retirement, they would split it out to each party. So the part would go to James, 50% would go to James, 50% would go to her. Now she has a $5,000 pension. She doesn't want to touch that. That may be a negotiating point that they can do a trade-off on something else. And that's kind of where she's at.
Okay.
So what do you recommend? We're going to need to take, let's both go in and talk to each party at this point? And try
we should hash this out, what it is that they disagree on and what they agree on, and then work from there.
Okay.
To finish it up with the memorandum of understanding.
Okay, so let's both go meet with James first and discuss the differences in positions, and then we'll both go over and meet with Jennifer. And if we can get through the main key points, then at the as a closing thing, we'll deal with the visitation with Gabriella about that. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on from there.